Dr. Econ here with another tale on how our economy works. The official inflation rate for the core inflation is at 6.6%. The core inflation is why the Federal Reserve is so concerned and why it keeps raising interest rates more and more so that it can start slowing the economy down and stop this rampant increase in prices. They're trying to check the fact that there's just too much money flowing in the market right now. And one way to suck money out of the market is to decrease the amount of borrowing that people can do. Borrowing on houses, borrowing on cars. The challenge is that they pumped so many dollars into the economy during the COVID recession that the economy is way overheated. Part of the challenge is that not only did the US do that, but the rest of the world followed suit and pumped money into their economies as well. So we see this inflationary problem that they're dealing with. You know, back in October of 2021, it was only 4.6%, and almost all of 2021, it was floating around 4%, but the Federal Reserve really didn't do anything about that, even though their target was 2%, and now it's running at 6.6% over those 4% increases from the previous year. So you can see that inflation is really taking a bite out of our wallets. Part of the challenge is that, of course, there's two other components. The core doesn't have energy and it doesn't have food. So if you look at the energy inflation, that's at a whopping 19.8% over last year. Now everybody's saying, well, gosh, it's down. Well, yeah, it's down, but it's still almost 20% more than it was last year, even though it's not 40% more than it was last year at one point like it was in June. Now, so that's a horrendous, awful, terrible number. If we flip over to food, heavens, it's 11% more than it was last year. Even though it's starting to trend downward, the inflation rate is slowing, but it's still 11% more than it was last year. Okay, take 10% out of your budget and see how your budget feels about it. Well, everybody knows how their budget feels about it. It's just not going good. Well, part of the challenge is that money was easy to come by. We were receiving checks from the Treasury for the United States. We were getting these extra benefits, and all this money was flowing into the economy. And what was happening is it creates a psychology issue. The psychology of getting more money is that you spend more money. Well, that's what the economists and the Federal Reserve counted on. They wanted you to spend money to keep the economy moving. Well, part of the challenge with that is we get used to spending money. What happens when we get used to spending money and the money's no longer there? You cannot turn off the spending as fast as you can put the spending on. So what ends up happening? Here's the problem. So here's personal expenditures, and we have through the month of September here. So this is an index, so it tells you the relative change. And so it changed from the previous month by 0.3%. That tells you that expenditures are going up by 0.3%, or about 30 cents out of every $1,000. Or about $3 out of every $1,000, pardon me. So that is happening in the face of savings going down. It went down by 0.3%. So you would think that we're just taking our money out of savings. Well, that's also not a good thing to do, because we need to save for times of, challenges in our economy. And I think we're headed into a time where we're going to be a bit challenged in our economy. So what's happening is literally people are struggling to turn off the spigot. I should have gotten a chart up here too as to the personal debt rate. The personal debt rate is also rising. So not only are people taking money out of savings to continue spending at the rate they've become accustomed, they're also hitting their credit cards. So let me tell you a story. My mother was not particularly good at managing money, but she got along. She was a single mom for a long, long time, as my parents got divorced when I was in high school. At that point in her life, her father passed away, my grandfather passed away, and then all the inheritance went to his current wife. And then when she passed away, what was left of the estate that my grandfather had was split up among several heirs of the wife, and my mom was included in that. And so she received a sum that was about twice what her annual income was. And what happened with her is that as she had this savings account that she could constantly keep taking money out of, she didn't watch the fact and invest that money. She just kept on taking it out, using it as her piggy bank to go ahead and get the little extra things. She remodeled her kitchen, and she, did various things around the house, and gave a lavish Christmas to us for one Christmas. But after a while, when the money ran out of her savings account, she couldn't stop the spending. There was somehow this expectation that she wanted and needed to continue spending at the level that she had been. And she broke into her credit cards. And eventually she couldn't pay her mortgage. And eventually she couldn't pay her cars. And she ended up filing bankruptcy at that point. It's a sad tale, and at that point in time, my mom moved in with our family, and she lived the rest of her life with us. But the challenge here is that it's a cautionary tale of money and how it's managed in your household. You really, really need to watch and be careful that you keep your spending within a budget, and that budget needs to be realistic according to your income. And keep it that way. Always put some money in savings. Always make sure you pay off your credit cards every month so that you're not paying, this interest. Interest is just nonsense money. It's just money you pay for somebody because you wanted to enjoy something earlier. Sometimes you don't even have the item that you spent the money on or that you carried the debt for, especially if it's on a credit card. Just don't get into that. Stay away from debt so that you can keep the freedom that you need to enjoy financially going forward. So this is Dr. Econ signing out. Thanks.